Hello and welcome to this presentation. This is a resource and a follow-up to my first PD presentation where I laid the foundation about how reading emerges and how students learn to read words via orthographic mapping. In this follow-up, my intention is to review orthographic mapping, what it is, and then to talk about one particular instructional strategy that can be used to facilitate orthographic mapping or this learning in the classroom. If you have any questions following this presentation, please feel free to reach out to me at freysm@buffalostate.edu. And just note that most of the slides have an audio icon. So if you click that, there will be some commentary or narration for that particular slide. Thank you. In my initial presentation, I talked about the different ways a reader might read a word. For example, reading an unfamiliar word might be read by decoding, analogy, or prediction, with decoding being superior. And familiar words are read by sight, means that these words have been read before and they're stored in memory and are immediately retrieved. And the important thing to remember is that all words, when practiced, become read from memory by sight. So what does it take to read words by sight from memory? How are written words committed to memory? How do children learn to read words? It is through a connection forming process called orthographic mapping. And that was the main topic of my presentation. So readers learn sight words by forming connections between graphemes in spellings, and those are letters in the spellings, and phonemes underlying the pronunciation of individual words. And this connection between the graphemes and the phonemes secures a sight word in memory. When a reader sees the words on a page, they need to identify and segment the sounds each letter produces. Then they blend those sounds together to pronounce the whole word. Thus, grapheme phoneme knowledge or alphabetic knowledge is wholly essential for literacy acquisition and to reach a mature state of reading. With practice and over time, the written word bonds with the pronunciation and meaning of the word, and it becomes committed to memory and can be read by sight. And as you'll see in the next slide, acquisition of sight word learning ability requires that students learn regularities of the writing system, beginning with graphing phoneme relations, phoneme segmentation, and decoding skills. So to reiterate my main presentation, orthographic mapping happens when spellings of words bond to their pronunciation. What bonds this, the glue between spelling and pronunciation, is knowledge of the grapheme phoneme correspondences. And the practice, decoding practice, that strengthens these bonds comes from using this knowledge to decode words. This practice secures the word in memory so that unfamiliar words become more familiar over time. And again, the knowledge of the alphabetic system provides the glue that bonds the spelling to the phonological identity, so that when readers read words by sight, they access information stored in memory from previous experiences reading the word, and sight of the written word activates that spelling, the pronunciation, and meaning immediately in memory without any decoding steps required. So decoding helps to secure or to allow orthographic mapping to happen, but once with sufficient practice, we don't need to decode anymore, right? Because inside the sight of the word activates it automatically for us. So if readers can recognize words automatically by sight, then word reading can be executed unconsciously, and it frees up cognitive resources or space to use for comprehension of a text. I'd like to share a quick and effective intervention that can be done to help teach students to acquire words that they may be unfamiliar with that is in line with orthographic mapping. So for this intervention, I would recommend working with a small group of students, about 5 or less, for approximately 10 minutes at a time. And in this intervention, students meet for a series of sessions to work on select target words, which they will practice reading, pronouncing, segmenting, and spelling. So what students would need would be a laminated sheet with double-decker Alconin boxes as shown here. So you see the yellow tokens and then what I call double-decker Alconin boxes, a dry erase marker, an eraser, and 4 plastic counters. And so if you click on this slide, you'll see that the students sit facing the teacher, who starts by saying the target word and having the students repeat. Then the students and the teacher tap it 2 times or segment it 2 times. Then the teacher will ask the students to now watch as she writes it on the board, then points once underneath each grapheme, slowly saying the phonemes for each grapheme. So in this example, it would be as she points to each letter. Then students are shown and asked to move 1 counter, 1 at a time, for each sound they hear. The teacher at this time again should point once underneath each letter, slowly saying each phoneme for the grapheme. Then the teacher will ask the students if they are ready to spell. Once students are ready, the teacher should cover the word am. So if you click, you'll see that the hands will cover the word, and ask students to spell am. Students will spell the word in the bottom row of the grid of their double-decker Alconin boxes, writing 1 grapheme inside each box only in the columns that contain a counter on top. And this makes sense now because there's a 1-to-1 relationship, but this can be especially impactful when we're talking about graphemes like SH that make 1 sound. Shh. Now students are instructed to put the caps on their markers when they're ready to check their spelling. Once ready, the teacher can uncover the word and underlines each grapheme in the word, saying the corresponding phoneme. Then underlines the entire word below the first instance, saying the whole word as 1 succinct word, am. And then asking students to check by putting thumbs up if they got it, thumbs sideways if they had a mix-up, and then thumbs on their nose or something else if they had a mix-up but then fixed it. And we want to encourage students to fix that. So participants who had a mix-up, who spelled the word incorrectly, or if you're working with a word with a digraph, split the digraph across 2 boxes. Here you would help them to correct their spelling. This method can be done with regularly spelled words like am, but it can also be done with temporarily irregularly spelled word like she, who does not have a 1-to-1 correspondence but has a digraph, for example. And it can also be used with words that are considered to be irregularly spelled, so permanently irregularly spelled, like said, that are very idiosyncratic and deviate from what we expect the sound to make. Or another one would be like have. Because even though these words are permanently irregularly spelled or have these deviations, they do still have anchors in them that do correspond to the sounds we expect them to make. And this does help students to secure these words in memory in order to read them by sight. We do not need to be using any memorization tactics or popcorn words or anything like that to teach that. In fact, those methods are not as effective.